Good afternoon. My name is Jordan Gonzalez, and I serve as chairman of the Lincoln Young Professionals Group. First, I want to thank you for joining us today. I realize that you have a lot of options on where you choose to spend your time, and I'm grateful that you chose to spend it with us. And I hope that we can see each other throughout our week-long schedule of events. 2020 is perhaps the most consequential year in our lifetimes. In the past 9 months, we collectively experienced an ongoing global pandemic, a worldwide movement for racial justice, a fiercely competitive national election, and an economic recession. Some of you have felt overwhelmed or worried. Others have felt isolated or discouraged. We need to acknowledge, and do acknowledge, that it is okay to not feel okay. We've also seen shining stories of success this year. Our community has witnessed professionals come together to support our community in need. We've seen young leaders organize movements to advocate for equality. Young business owners and entrepreneurs have adapted creatively to remain open for business, and our community has been inspired by people making an impact in the Lincoln community. This week, we'll show you these shining stories of success. We'll also acknowledge the challenges that lie ahead and how we can overcome these obstacles. 2020 has revealed two things. One, change is constant, and two, you and me and other young professionals are the fabric and future of the Lincoln community. We are Lincoln, and this week will offer us various perspectives and energy to embrace the call to leadership, advocacy, and volunteerism. That's especially fitting why we're starting off YP Week with a focus on motivation. Because of COVID, I had the pleasure of getting to know today's featured speaker, not in person, but by reading about her in the Foundry magazine. Jen Landis is an artist, author, and entrepreneur. She's the founder of Pincurl Girls, and Jen uses her life experiences and her art to encourage preteen and teen girls to think positively about themselves. Using daily SMS text messaging, wall calendars, planners, and a new upcoming book, Jen reminds girls every day that they are enough and to believe in themselves. Jen, welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Jordan. Happy to be here. All right. Can everybody hear me all right? I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. All right. Jordan, does that look okay? Can you see my screen?
Looks great.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to take you back to when I was 10 years old. My parents signed me up for junior golf, and I played 5-hole short, which means we didn't tee off at the tee. We started in the middle of the fairway and teed off there. I don't know if I was excited to play golf as much as I was to wear my new hot pink Izod polo shirt and drink Shirley Temples at the snack bar. I pulled out my pink ball and put it on top of my pink tee. My dad's voice ran through my head from all of our practicing on the driving range. Jenny, keep your head down. Okay, I was in the perfect stance. I was ready. I lifted my club back and swung with all my might, expecting to hear the sound of the ball hitting the iron, hopping onto the green. Instead, I heard the swish of air, and the ball was still sitting at my seat, laughing at me. I heard the sound of a small pencil scratch the paper after each of my whiffs. When the club did connect with the ball, it would scurry about 5 feet before it slowly puttered to a stop. I wanted to crawl in my golf bag and disappear. I my score would be around 40 to 60 strokes a hole The mom who kept score did not miss a stroke. Although something good did come out of it. The junior golf program had a banquet award at the end of the summer. As I was busy sipping my Shirley Temple, my name was called. I had won the Most Improved Player award for 5-hole short. I lowered my strokes from 300 a game down to 120. Although it's a fun story to share, that experience and others like it turned me into a fighter. And those obstacles fuel my fire and motivate me even today. I'm going to share with you some of my lessons that keep me motivated and moving forward. Previous in my life, before I turned the age that I am now, whenever I used to make a decision, it wouldn't necessarily be about myself. I wanted to think about, if I made this decision, what would other people say? What would my mom think? What would my dad think? What would my teachers think? My boss, my friends? My first job out of college was at an advertising agency in Omaha. I was a graphic designer, and with the distinct and absolute certain determination, after 2 years of experience, I was going to move to a bigger city. There are no secrets about this plan. I even told my supervisor about the plan because I knew what I wanted. Because I was a graphic designer looking for a creative job, I needed a standout resume. I didn't want I unfolded a store-bought box of hair color, flattened out the box, and traced it to create my outline. I put my photo on the front, wrote the copy, and placed it on all 4 sides. I printed my full resume on a big sheet of newsprint, spray glued 2 plastic gloves on it, and folded it up into a rectangle and placed it in the box and mailed it off. And it worked. I did get a job in Kansas City. I remember crossing the bridge that night when I moved, my car full of all my stuff. A wave of excitement and terror pulsed through my body as I looked over the downtown Kansas City. There is no wrong path. Your life can be changed by making just one decision. There are an endless paths. Even if it all goes wrong, you will meet somebody you're supposed to meet, learn something that you're supposed to learn, and experience something that you should experience. So if there's something calling you, don't be afraid to take the risk and go for it. Make yourself stand out. What is your version of the hair color box? Once you have made your decision, it's time to act. Don't let too much time pass, excuse me, because you'll start trying to talk yourself out of it. You'll start thinking, that's kind of a silly idea. No, that won't work. No, I shouldn't really do that. What I've learned, if you're looking for motivation to push you over that hump into action, I have actually found that using my leverage can help you prove yourself wrong and give you that extra leverage to go for it. So find your inner power. Listen to your gut. Let your emotions bubble up. Get mad. Use those emotions to fuel you and to make that change for yourself. Many successful people have had hard upbringings and struggled through tough life situations. They've harnessed their frustrations and emotions and used them as leverage to make their lives better. I think about the story of Sylvester Stallone a lot. He talks about his relationship with Arnold Schwarzenegger. The two hated each other in the 80s because they were both in the same business. The competition of who had the most muscles, who fought better, who made more money at the box office. The two couldn't stand to be in the same room. Eventually, they became friends, but there was something Sylvester said in a recent interview that really caught my attention. Sylvester said he missed the rivalry with Arnold because it pushed him to train harder, to write more movies, to improve his acting. He used that rocky relationship as leverage to improve himself and push himself closer to his dreams. So find what drives you. What is your inner voice saying that you can't do? Can you prove it wrong? Or is there a frenemy that you want to outperform? Take those emotions and turn them into fuel to take mess up more. I know we all hate messing up and making mistakes, but it's so good to make mistakes. Instead of feeling like you need to be perfect, actually practice messing up more. In the movies, directors will call for multiple takes of a scene. They do this not only to get it right, but to allow the actors the opportunity to stumble on a better way to do the scene. Allowing for mistakes allows the magic to happen. It's easy to find new ways to do something when you allow yourself to stumble on happy accidents. So the next time you mess up, think about it as a mistake instead of a mistake. After I moved to Kansas City, I worked at Bernstein Rain for 6 years. And then I decided I wanted to do something new. I remember she thought about me quitting my job and opening up a clothing store. I don't know how she always was so supportive, but she was. And she said to me, "What would be the worst thing that would happen if you quit, Jen?" And I thought about it and I said, "Starve to death?" That afternoon, I put in my 2 weeks. I wasn't afraid of failing. I made the decision and opened up Voltage in the Kansas City Crossroads district. A year later, I went to my shop and saw empty hangers peppered down the street. My shop's front door had been smashed in and there were no clothes left in the space. I had been robbed. It was a gut punch. I couldn't afford to restock my inventory, so I decided to close. I sold my house. Influenced the way I viewed the experience. I was so proud of myself for taking that chance and trying it. I learned so much during that year and had so much fun too. So don't be afraid to take risks and try something new. And be okay if you get it wrong. Worry less. The human brain loves to worry. Just when you think you've successfully worried about everything there is to worry about, your mind can find more things to worry about. When you find yourself worrying about something, ask yourself, what really am I most worried about? And with each answer, dig deeper and ask again, but why is that? And continue to ask yourself several times in order to get the core reason of why you're worried. Next, ask yourself what practice more. Do you need to have a hard conversation with someone? If you can't do anything, if you can't do anything about it, then it's out of your control and no amount of worrying is going to help. My inner voice tells me to worry about lots of things. It tells me it won't be any good. It worries I'll make a fool out of myself. It tells me to give up after making one small mistake. She tells me multiple times a day that I am not good enough. If your inner voice sounds anything like mine, do not listen to it. That voice will not get you to where you want to go. It wants you to stay small and not grow into the amazing person you are. On your goals when you're listening to your limiting thoughts. I gave my inner mean girl voice a name. I call her Kate. And when Kate starts talking to me now, I ignore her. Worrying is using your imagination to create something you do not want. You, my friends, can train yourself to stop worrying. Ignore that inner mean voice and you'll feel more confident. It takes practice, but now I can turn Kate off almost immediately. The more you learn to ignore and quiet your limiting thoughts, the easier it'll get for you over time. We all have limiting beliefs about ourselves. We day in and day out. Those beliefs can hold us back from what we could accomplish. For years, I believed I wasn't good enough. I don't do that much anymore. And it happened after one day, after have enough frustration with myself, I decided once and for again, enough. I need to stop talking negatively about myself. And right there and then, I started telling myself a new story. So if you have limiting beliefs, I suggest you start telling yourself a new story too. Start by repeating the opposite story you normally tell yourself. I changed mine from, I'm not good enough, to, I am as worthy as anyone else. I am good enough. I repeat this line to myself daily. I am good enough. I inhale, stand up straight, raise my head, put my shoulders back, and say, self, I am saving over my old limiting beliefs, just like a file on the computer with a newer positive belief. You can do this too. Write and repeat your new story out loud. Say it as often as you can throughout the day. You'll feel better when you speak to yourself in a loving, positive, and affirmative way. Start before you are ready. The phrase imposter syndrome gets talked about a lot. I don't know if I really have imposter syndrome as much as I have pre-imposter syndrome. I have a problem even letting myself feel like an imposter. When I thought about starting a podcast, I thought of tons of reasons why I shouldn't. First, my voice. Did it sound good enough to talk to me? What if this? What if that? It went on and on. But I started before I could change my mind because I researched before I changed my mind. I didn't have time to research to see how I could get a better voice. I just went for it. And after each episode, I became more comfortable with it. And now I'm on episode 24, and it seems like no big deal. I love it how that happens. If I would have waited until I was ready, I would not have a podcast today. I can guarantee it. So start before you think you are ready. You will get the hang of it, and it will get better. Law of attraction. I have been studying this with my mom since I was a child. So here's my law of attraction 101. The bubble gum at the bottom of your shoe, trying to slow you down. The fact is, when you think negatively about yourself, you are attracting more negative thoughts to stick to you and slow you down. On the opposite side of a negative thought is a positive thought. And luckily, positive thoughts also attract positive thoughts too. And because you can only think one thought at a time, think about and talk only about the positive things happening in your life. Do not complain about any negative things. If you catch yourself in a negative thought pattern, pivot out of there until you feel a thought that feels better. It's almost like a radio dial. So when you're listening to 98.5 and it's all complain, or negative, Turn the channel to 101.9 and maybe that has. Look for motivation. Look for everyday motivation. I love looking for motivation from others. It's all around us. I love talking to young women to hear their stories. And if they can do it at their age, then I can do it too. Grow Brave is a podcast for teens to hear from other teens about their struggles and how they overcame them. With photoshopped images and showing only the highlight reels of people's lives in social media, I wanted to share some real stuff, the hard stuff, the accomplishments of teens, and what makes them brave. Here are some of the girls that motivate and inspire me. This is Sienna. When I talked to Sienna, I was doing customer research, but my heart melted over her joyful smile. I immediately wanted to have her on the podcast, especially when she told me she loved playing flag football and she was the only girl on her team. At the end of each podcast, I asked the girl, "What does the word brave mean to you?" Sienna said, "Brave means being yourself. You don't give up, don't be shy, and make sure you try your hardest, and you're not scared of anything. You are capable, and you know that you are capable of everything." Dailene, she didn't do any sports when she was younger, but she wanted to do a sport in high school. Too short for basketball, so she decided wrestling would be a fun alternative, especially because wrestling didn't have tryouts. I asked her if she was nervous at all to start. "Oh, absolutely," she said. "I remember dreading the walk down the hallway to the wrestling room after school, just because I was so nervous and I didn't have anyone that was going with me." Even after she was on the team, a lot of her friends didn't even think she was really wrestling. They thought she was just a manager or something until she showed them her bruises from wrestling. And she said she was pretty sure her coaches hated her because she constantly kept throwing up. She said her freshman year was terrible because each time she went to practice in meets, she had a stomach bug and a sinus infection. She was sick constantly. But bravery to Dailene is standing up for what you want to do. Just do whatever you want to do, whether you're going to face adversity or push back from other people. The next year, she ended up winning her weight class. This is Noor. Noor struggled with body weight issues in middle school. She was a dancer, and each time she looked in the mirror, she said that she couldn't find one nice thing to say about her body. After years of that, she decided instead of trying to find something she liked in her body, instead, she would tell herself something she liked other than her body, like doing photography. She was good at photography, and she could confidently say that about herself. That she stopped focusing on her negative thoughts and instead focused on something completely different, her photography. So when you are stuck thinking a thought and it's cycling through over and over, try to divert your attention to something that's easier for you to agree with. Focus on something that you can easily get happy about. Noor's definition of being brave is, sometimes people will recognize what you're doing, but at the same time, you could be working on something for a long time and no one would ever know about it. And that doesn't make that thing any less amazing or any less about to change the world. Izzy knew from 8 years old she wanted to be a scientist. She loved space, math, and thinking in abstract. Today, freshman at Barnard College and Columbia University, researching brown dwarfs in space, and is the CEO of First Empower, a girls' STEM business in New York City. She accomplished all of this because she believes in herself. But her math middle school teacher did not believe in her and told her that she should not be in his advanced math class. Luckily, she did not believe him because of that, she has made it her mission to encourage other young girls to learn about STEM. When I asked her what brave was, she said, to really create a world that is more just and more fair in every way, shape, and form. It relies on girls being brave and taking up space and walking into spaces that have been historically not meant for them. And these girls get any smarter. Then we have Janai. She was born in the United States, Janani. She was born in the United States, but her family moved her back to India so she could get to know the culture and her family that still lived there. Having played soccer her whole life, she quickly learned that girls playing soccer was not okay in India, and she was denied the opportunity to play because she was a girl. So instead, she joined a club team outside of her school, where she was one girl among 100 boys. She rode her bike for 2 miles on an extremely bad roads in an extremely bad neighborhood, an experience that she said was very frightening, just so she could play soccer. Even though she had all these difficulties, she continued to practice. She started her organization, Girls Play Global, which creates opportunities for girls in rural India to participate in soccer. She addressed the issue of inequality and gender biases in sports at the United Nations. The issue of child marriage still exists today, especially in rural Indian communities. So a lot of the girls are discouraged from even pursuing the 11th grade or 12th grade. And a lot of girls get married as young as 9th grade or even younger than that. And using sports, a lot of girls were able to improve their self-confidence so they could speak to their parents and convince them that they Janani says bravery means standing up for what you believe in and not being afraid what other people may think of you. Focus on the mission rather than your fears. As an activist, she says that she's required to challenge the standard practices of society by speaking out about it. She thinks it's important to stay true to yourself, aligned to your actions and values. And it's good to step out of your comfort zone and try new things. So here is your daily pep talk. Close your eyes if you want. Do you know how amazing you are? Yes, it's true. You can't even begin to understand the full extent of how incredible you are. You are filled with so much magic and positive energy. The world needs to see your amazingness. Cherish the brilliant magic inside of you. You are unique. Embrace it. No one in the entire world can tell a story like you can. No one can paint a picture like you can. See yourself as a genius. You need to believe your work counts and it's as good as anyone else's. Be the truest you and share who you are with the world. If you feel like wearing something is wear it. If you have a new super out there idea, say it. Don't feel like you should blend into the crowd in order to be accepted. When you are 100% yourself, you'll inspire others to be true to themselves too. You have everything you need inside of you to make things happen. And you, my friend, were made to shine. Celebrate yourself. Imagine new ways to turn your accomplishments into something bigger. Milk it, exaggerate it, multiply it, pour expander juice on it. When something exciting happens to you, find noisemakers and design a special t-shirt with magic markers. Wear it around, celebrate the occasion. Take out the magnifying glass and make a big deal out of your everyday experiences and successes, because you are a big deal. Thank you. If you want more pep talks, I invite you all to enjoy my daily text list where I send out empowering and encouraging texts. You can use the code YPG for a free month. You can follow me also on Instagram and Facebook at Pincurl Girls. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jen. And again, I think one of the key things that I walked away with was learning to worry less, because I think in a time of so much uncertainty, we as I think as a species, and it's just people in general, we love to have a certain level of certainty, and we know what can be predictable, what to look forward to. And I think some of the uncertainty that we've been impacted with this year has enabled us sometimes to worry more than what we should. So very sage words, and I appreciate that. At this point, I do want to go ahead and encourage folks that at this time we will take a few questions from the audience. So if you'd like to submit your questions through the Q&A button located right here below, you are able to do that. You can also use the chat feature too, and we'd be more than happy to solicit questions that way. I guess my biggest question that I had, because I'll start since I have this opportunity, Jen, with Pincurl Girls, walk me through kind of, did you have doubt when you were launching it? Because it sounds like you did. You obviously talked a message about how to kind of push yourself and not listen to your negative self, but was that just kind of all you did? Was there other mechanisms that you also used to just kind of remind yourself developing this great movement, that it was worth it and it was worth the risk?
When I went to grad school, at the time I had fun, like I had confidence and I had friends and stuff. I sat into the art room for the first time with all these other grad students and immediately had a panic attack saying, oh my gosh, these guys are so much smarter than me. They're probably so much more talented than me, and continued to talk negatively to myself for those 3 years. And so the art and the Pincurl Girls came from that conversation of working through those negative self-talk. When I graduated, the messages started to become more positive and stuff. So I've used the Pincurl Girls as a way to channel positivity and encourage me to ever have anything that I'm very nervous to do or feel like, oh gosh, it would be really easy for me to say no. I have to use the Pincurl Girls and say, Jen, if you want to promote this to other people and to young girls to take a chance, I'm sorry, honey, but you're going to have to do what you're afraid to do.
Well, thank you for that. And Kayla, I think, is also monitoring our Q&A. One question that we have talks about fear of failure. And the question, I guess, surrounds, are there other coping mechanisms that we can do? Because typically when we have a fear of something or a challenge that we don't know if we're able to surmount it, we have this initial response in the amygdala of fight or flight. Is there a way that we can also, besides kind of hyping ourselves up, is there a routine that we can do to help us control that initial response, to be a little bit more collected, calm, and confident in approaching tough situations?
Yeah, first of all, I do believe wholeheartedly that if you speak to yourself kindly and tell yourself that you can do it, you can do it. I also think that a big problem or a big thing that you might have to overcome and you have fear of it, could you break it down into smaller steps? What does it look like if you just take step 1? Is that scary? sometimes we look at the whole thing and we think, oh my gosh, no way, I could not do this. But what if you broke it down? How would that look like? And could you just do that one step? And could you just do it today and then be done with it and then step back and take a look at tomorrow and see what the next step might be?
Very good. Thanks. One of our attendees, Akriti, asks, thanks for chatting with us today. You're so inspirational. What is your best advice for managing a million things and prioritizing? And how do you handle so much?
Oh my gosh. I do not have the answer to that. I think every morning I need someone to help prioritize and like manage things. I'm such a creative that I have a million ideas and a million things going. So if anyone does have the answer to that, I would love to learn how to do it. Very good.
We had one question, but I think it was submitted prematurely because it wasn't fully formed, unfortunately. It has something to do with music artists. So I may maybe talk a little bit about, I guess, and I don't know if music artists is meant to be together or not, but I guess one question that is what artists help you get in the right mindset to overcome something?
Yeah. I really like to read books. That's how I think of books. I do think that there's a trick called the Swiss cheese exercise, I'm going to say, where when you have to overcome something, again, like I said, how could you break it down into little steps, like little holes in the cheese, and just build the momentum. I think the hardest part is going from not doing it to like feeling like you have to do it 100%. Like, let's get to 5 miles per hour and then 10 and then 15 and then 20 and then 50. And then when you're at 50 miles per hour, you're going to have that motivation. You're going to have that inspiration to get you to the end.
Another, maybe more of a comment than a question, and it was from an attendee named Jamanda. My daughter, age 12, loves the daily text that she gets from Pincurl Girls. Thank you so much for putting these awesome, positive message out into the world. So a great comment I wanted to share with you there. Another attendee who chose to remain anonymous asks, how do you distinguish between when it's time to move on and when you need to push through on a project?
That's a very good question. I always go by my interest level. So if I don't have the fire in my belly for it anymore, I don't necessarily move on. It doesn't mean I won't go back to it and get that fire in my belly later, but I really listen to my inspiration that I have at the current time and use that in order to fuel, hey, what do I want to do today? I have a lot of different projects. I do the Pincurl Girls. I also do painting, video work. So when I'm not inspired to paint, I don't paint, but that doesn't mean I won't go and paint for 3 months straight, tomorrow. So do what's in your belly. Trust your inspiration will be in your gut.
Excellent. And I don't see any additional questions. So I guess I maybe conclude it with one other question before I have some closing announcements, if that works for you. And the question is, you kind of talk about ways that you try to keep and sustain your motivation. Is there like a book or a TV series that you're watching right now that you really enjoy? And if so, could you share that with us?
Oh, yes. Well, I really love Bob Proctor's books. I think it's 12 Things, something, but I could read that over and over and over again. So I really like him. And then there's that Netflix show of the African-American lady who starts her own hairline. And I find that super inspiring. I love when entrepreneurs or people just keep moving on.
So, and you kind of went in and out there with the connection. You said you love it when young entrepreneurs do what?
I love it when they overcome something, when they start with nothing and then overcome it and to produce like amazingness, and they don't stop. Like they don't let that obstacles stop them. I think that's what makes a great entrepreneur.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jen, again, thank you so much for giving us your time today. To our audience, again, pincurlgirls.com, or if you're on Instagram, at Pincurl Girls is a great way to see some of the great work that Jen has been doing. And again, Jen, thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
This is fun. Thanks.
Absolutely, yes. And to all of you who tuned in today, thank you for joining us. Lincoln YPG is proud to sponsor this event and all events coming up this week for YP Week. Our next event for EVA Creative will take place tomorrow at 12 p.m. noon, and you can register for this event and other YP events online at lincolnypg.com. If you're not already a member, please consider joining YPG so we can continue to host useful, informative, and fun events for our young professional community. It would be our pleasure to serve you. Thank you so much. Be safe, be well, and happy YP Week.